Bonjour tout le monde. Today we're talking about nouns and articles. So first, a noun is a person, place, or thing. In French, every single noun has a gender. So it's either masculine or feminine. That kind of depends. Sometimes it can be based on the natural gender of something, like an animal or a person, but sometimes it's a little bit arbitrary. So you might have to look it up in the dictionary, and we'll talk about that. An article is a word that precedes a noun, which defines it as specific, which means definite or the, or unspecific, which is an indefinite, which means a or an or some. So first, let's look at our definite articles. All of these articles définis, or definite articles, mean the. And they're used to talk about a specific noun. So we're talking about the dog, the train. So it's specific to what you're talking about, okay? We have multiple forms of the definite article, actually for both sets of articles, because we have to make sure that we make the article agree with the gender and the number of the noun, and that can actually help. So if you look, we have this chart right here. If your noun is masculine and you want to say the, for example, the bus, and singular, you'll use le bus. But if it's masculine and talking about multiple buses, we would use les bus. If we're talking about a feminine noun that is singular, you'll use la. For example, la fille, the girl. But if we have multiple girls, we will use les filles. And then if your noun starts with a vowel, A, E, I, O, U, or H or Y in French, we will use l'apostrophe, so you'll combine them. For example, if we're talking about avion, airplane, it will be l'avion. But if we're talking about plural, multiple airplanes, we would say les avions. You'll notice that if the noun is plural, the article, if we're using the definite article, is always going to be les. We have some examples here. Il aime le chien. He likes the dog, not any dog, the dog specifically. Madame Probst est la prof de français. Madame Probst is the French teacher. I'm the only French teacher in this case, so this would be a situation if we're talking about not having any other French teachers. Not just any French teacher, though. I am the one French teacher. Vous étudiez les verbes en ER. You study the ER verbs. Not just any verbs, but the ER verbs. Always, 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 we need an article in front of our noun in French. A lot of times that article is going to be the definite article. And we'll talk about how to choose between the two. Then we also have our indefinite articles, les articles indéfinis. These are used to talk about a non-specific noun or count how many nouns you have, like one of that noun. And this is translated as a or an, or when it's plural, it's some. So if we have a masculine noun that is singular, for example, bus, we would say un bus, a bus. Could be any bus, but it's a bus. If we're talking about some buses, then we would use des bus, the plural. If we have something feminine, like fille, a girl or daughter, and it's singular, we use une fille, a girl or daughter. If we have multiple girls or daughters, we would say des filles. Here are some examples. Elle donne un examen. She gives a test. You're not necessarily talking about a specific test. We didn't say the test on algebra. We said a test. So we're talking about any old test. Tu manges une pomme. You eat an apple. We are looking at this, and this is actually telling us that they're eating one apple. Une pomme. Not the red apple, not the green apple, just any apple. Une pomme. Nous étudions des verbes. We study verbs, or we study some verbs. When we're talking about not any specific verbs, just any verbs, we use des, some verbs, especially if we have many verbs. If we were studying one verb, it would be un verbe. Now, how do you choose your article? You have to ask yourself two questions. So you can see that on the far side of the screen, okay? If our article is, we have to ask ourselves, the noun we're looking at, is it specific or non-specific? If it's specific, we're going to use the article défini, the definite article. If it's non-specific, the article indéfini. Some other tips is that the défini, the definite articles, le, la, or les, are used when we're talking about preference, if you like something or do not like something. Indéfinis are used for a whole something. So if we're talking about an entire something, that is going to be an indéfini, un, une, or des. Then you have to ask yourself, is it masculine or feminine? We could also have plural. So you have to ask yourself masculine, feminine, or plural. So if we are talking about a notebook, this is not the notebook that you use for French. It is just any old notebook, a notebook. We're non-specific, so it's going to be indéfini, a. So we choose from un, une, or des. Now, notebook is cahier, and the gender is masculine, and it's singular in this case. We're talking about a single notebook, and that's masculine. So we will choose un as our indefinite article, un cahier. Then we can change a noun's number from singular to plural or vice versa. The general rule is that you change the number of the article first. For example, if we're talking about un chien, change the article to des chiens, the plural version of the indefinite article. Then you're just going to add an S to the end of the noun, des chiens with an S at the end. Now, there are some cases in which you're not going to add an S. One of those cases is when there's already an S at the end. Another one is if there's already an X at the end. Then there are a series of nouns that we will add an X instead of an S. You will learn those as we come to them, so don't worry about them, but this is the general rule, and this will get you as far as you need to go for now. Obviously, exceptions on exceptions on exceptions, so sorry. There are also some rules to help you identify a noun's gender if you don't already have an article. Honestly, the easiest way to know what a noun's gender is to look it up in the dictionary. It'll give you an F or an M to tell you if it is feminine or masculine. You can actually go to this tiny URL right here to check out the gender rules. There are quite a few of them and a lot of exceptions, but you're not responsible for those. You're just welcome to look at them. In general, if there's an E at the end of the noun, it's feminine. If there's not, it's masculine. But when in doubt, look it up in the dictionary and never be ashamed to do so. The gender of nouns is really important because it also helps us to determine which form of the adjective we're going to use. Not only the article, but also the adjective when we start describing things. So if you're not given an article, look up the noun's gender or already memorize it when you learn a new vocabulary word. So when I give you vocabulary, memorize the article that goes with each noun that we learn. Très bien, à bientôt.